Hello and welcome everyone. I'm excited to answer your questions about our Artists-at-Sea and Berths of Opportunity programs. My name is Hannah Nolan. I'm the Expedition and Community Outreach Specialist at the Schmidt Ocean Institute. Now, before we get started, I was hoping to share some really awesome examples of things that have come out of both of these programs. So here we have a picture of an exhibit, Half-Light, that was created by our former artist at sea, Ellie Hannon, and multimedia correspondent Connor Ashley, and they showed it at the Maitland Regional Art Gallery in New South Wales, Australia. Connor and Ellie participated in our 2021 Australian Mesophotic Coral Examination Expedition and felt so inspired by their time on RV Falkor that they created a body of work based off of their experience. And then this is our most recent story. Here we have a picture of our most recent Berths of Opportunity participant, Mark Fontanes-Ortiz, who participated in our most recent expedition to the Mid-Atlantic Ridge, which just finished. Mark is a microbiology PhD at Arizona State University and is from Puerto Rico. Falkor 2 sailed in and out of San Juan during this past expedition to the Mid-Atlantic Ridge. Studying microbes living on hydrothermal vents and extreme environments has been a long-time goal of his, and we were really honored to support that goal and to bring him out to sea on his first big research expedition. So these are just some success stories from both these programs, Artists-at-Sea and Berths of Opportunity. And with that, I'm really eager to answer some of your questions about these programs.
Thank you so much, Hannah, for that welcome and for kicking us off with some success stories. It's a great way to start this session on Artists at Sea and Berths of Opportunity opportunities to come on board Falkor 2. Just a few logistical announcements before we get started with the questions. Please use the Q&A icon at the bottom of your Zoom screen to ask questions of Hannah, and we'll try to get through as many of them as possible in the next 30 minutes. Closed caption has also been enabled, and you can turn that on or off using the closed caption icon at the bottom of your screen as well. And as you heard when you joined, this session is being recorded and will be available on the SOI website in the upcoming weeks so that you can revisit anything that you missed or wish to hear again, and also share with your friends and colleagues who may be interested in that. So before we give our participants a few minutes to start typing in their questions, I'll start with a few that were submitted before the session began. Hannah, the Berths of Opportunity is a little bit of a new program within SOI for Falkor 2, and I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about that opportunity, who's eligible for it, and what types of activities or role might they take on when they come on board the vessel?
Yeah, that's a great question. So our Berths of Opportunity program was originally our Student Opportunities program, and we have evolved it a bit to sort of accommodate the new structure that we have at the Schmidt Ocean Institute, and to align with our 10-year strategy to explore different regions of our global ocean. So with Berths of Opportunity, students are still more than welcome to apply, but it is now focused on a more regional approach. So priority will go towards people who are living in the region where the ship is operating. So for example, for the next 2 years, we'll be off of Latin America, or actually off of South America. And so priority will be given to people living on the coastlines where the ship is operating out of. So next year is the west coast of South America. So people from those countries, though if you are from a Latin American country, including Central America, Caribbean, and Mexico, you are still welcome to apply for our time in South America. And so students are still eligible, but we also wanted to expand the program to bring on people who we feel would benefit from learning about their offshore waters, or alternatively, who we feel the expedition would benefit from having their knowledge on board. So this could include local resource managers, local marine park managers, government officials, storytellers, traditional knowledge holders, and community leaders.
Great. I'm looking forward to having a variety of people on board the vessel. Could you talk a little bit about once they come on board the vessel, no matter who they are in their professional life, but if they're on board as a Berth of Opportunity participant, what might be some of the activities that they participate in once they're on board?
Yeah, so there's sort of Berth of Opportunity participant will split their time between participating in the science and being a part of the science team and learning from the scientists, and then also helping in community outreach. So what that could look like is helping to narrate our live stream of our ROV dives in the local language. So for the next couple of years in Spanish. It could also look like hosting ship to shores with different community groups from the region, to kind of show the science that's happening on board and answer questions about the science. It could look like writing some blogs about your experience, or even helping in a little bit of translation for our different outreach products that we create.
Excellent. And for the Burst of Opportunity or an Artist at Sea participant, how do they apply? And if it is open for applications or an application-based process, do they apply for a specific voyage or do you match them with the voyage once you have all of the eligible participants?
Yeah, so we have our expedition schedule for kind of prepared for the rest of this year through the end of 2023. And then from 2024, we're still, I think as you learned in that last session, if you participated, we're accepting proposals and setting that schedule up at the moment. So I would say if you are interested in participating in a 2023 expedition, you can definitely signify which expedition you are most interested in, and we will take that into consideration. But it is mostly a matching process. We will and part of that matching is just looking at the schedule, and if we feel like you're a good fit, when your availability is to go to sea for 30 days. I would also say if you are interested in submitting a proposal, we are accepting proposals at schmidtocean.org. And we would appreciate if in the subject title you could put either Artists at Sea or Berth of Opportunity. Or if you have any questions, you can also submit to proposals@schmidtocean.org. Additionally, we will have more information coming on our website soon.
Excellent. So stay tuned and make good use of the proposals at schmidtocean.org website. We have a question geared towards the artist. Could you talk a little bit about the expectations for the artists when they come on board? And then I know Schmidt Ocean Institute has some Artists at Sea exhibitions around the globe. If you could talk about how the artists are able to participate in those types of events once they're come off the vessel.
Yeah. So when it comes to our expectations for our Artists at Sea participants, the first thing is that if you are accepted into the program and are an artist at sea, we do expect a donation of at least one piece to our traveling exhibit, which I'll address in the second part of the answer. The other thing that another kind of thing that artists should expect during their time on the ship is helping to participate in the science and learn from the scientists. So splitting your time between science and then also creating your art. Yeah. And then in terms of the traveling exhibit, so as mentioned, all of our artists have donated a minimum of one piece to this exhibit. It goes all around the world. It's currently at the Port of Seattle. Before that, it was at the Ciência Viva in Portugal as a part of the UN Ocean Conference. And so there will always be opportunities to come to any exhibition that we have. You are more than welcome. You are invited to them if you're able to travel and make the trip. Yeah, it's just we have this really lovely network that stays alive of all of our past artists at sea, and they often are at the different events that we put on.
Great. And I've met a few of them at those events, and it's always nice to chat with them. In your opening, you showed an image of Ellie and some of her artwork, which is beautiful and very colorful. Could you give some other examples of pieces of art that have been produced on board the vessel?
Yeah, that's a really great question. So I would say the last piece that was recently produced was by a artist pair, Carol Mickett and Robert Stackhouse. And they were commissioned to create a piece honoring the memory of Falkor 2. It now is in one of the lounge, or not, sorry, not in memory of Falkor 2, but in memory of Falkor Classic, our first ship. And it is now in the lounge, one of the lounge spaces on Falkor 2. It's very prominently displayed, and it has, it's a really beautiful piece of the ship with two luck dragons intertwining it, and then the signatures of crew members who were Falkor Classic crew. Beyond that, we've had musicians. We had a musician, Ben Cosgrove, who created pieces, like musical pieces based off of his experience. And I believe we have some recordings of that, and that was his donation. We have had sculptors on board. We have had we had a collage artist on board. We've had technologist kind of inspired artists who create like digital sculptural pieces. There's been such a breadth of art and such a range. And it's been really, really cool to see what gets created on any given expedition. And
Yeah,
Lisa just posted the our Artists-at-Sea gallery, and you can browse through some of the pieces in the collection.
great. I love looking at those pieces. They are very creative people. We have a question about remote participation, and I know we recently had a remote Artists at Sea participant. So could you speak about how we enable that participation and maybe a little bit about the art that was created in the most recent experience of working remotely?
Yeah, so we had our first remote artist at sea. His name is Taiji Terazaki, and he created this series called Vanishing Points, which is a series of images that were collected by ROV Sebastian on I don't remember the medium. It's kind of like on a glass. I've not been able to see them in person, but it's
Acrylic?
very
Is it
cool.
acrylic?
I think it's on acrylic. Yeah. It's good catch, Allison. And the animal starts to disappear, and it's sort of a call to think about what happens if these animals aren't in our ocean, from what I understand. How Taiji became involved in the program is, I believe he just showed a lot of interest. We didn't have any space or availability because we were in shipyard, and we worked with him to support his remote residency. How we will support other remote artists at sea. I think if you're not able to go on an expedition and you are interested in being a remote artist at sea, that's just submitting a proposal to us, and we will work with you on a remote artist at sea experience.
Awesome. Sounds great, Hannah. And you talked a little bit about Berths of Opportunity and giving preference to those that are coming from a local community where Falkor 2 is operating. Are you looking for the same thing from the Artists at Sea participants, that they're from the region near where Falkor 2 is operating?
Yeah. So we do prefer that the artists that we bring on board moving forward are from the region. That is a focus of ours, but we also accept proposals from artists all around the world. And if we feel like you would be a good fit for the expedition, we will consider you. We specifically are if you have a wider reach and can bring more attention to the expedition, that is of interest to us.
Excellent. And I think you already talked about this a little bit when we were talking about engaging local community participants earlier, but could you talk a little bit more about what kind of constitutes local, I guess you could say, how far around the area where Falcor 2 is operating will we go for participants?
Yeah, that is a great question. So again, for the next couple of years, we will be off of South America. So priority will go towards people from South American countries. Um, Stronger preference towards people, towards artists who might be live along the coast of where the ship is. So again, next year is the west coast of South America. But if you are from a Latin American country, or if you identify as Latin American but no longer live in in the country of origin, then you are more than welcome to apply.
Great. I think we want to be as inclusive as possible, but focusing on the communities where we'll be operating in. You
Yes.
gave some lovely examples of art that already exists from our previous Artists at Sea participants, and we have some questions about writers, literary artists, choreographers, videographers, maybe some artists that you didn't list that we've had on board as having been on board before, but are you open to these types of artists coming on board, and can two artists apply as kind of a partnership?
Yeah. So we consider any sort of artistic medium eligible for participating in our Artist at Sea program. So choreographers, literary artists, poets, that is all under consideration. If you are a part of an artistic team, if there's two of you, you are welcome to apply together. And if, again, we feel it's a good fit, we will definitely place you with an expedition. That said, beyond 2 to 3 people, if it's a large collective, that's where we might run into some issues, just because there is limited space on the ship. And beyond that, one thing I want to add is, as we said, there's usually a donation of a piece. So if you're a choreographer or a musician or a literary artist, then the donation would be a YouTube video, essentially, for choreography or for music, and then a donation of writing that we can circulate if you're a literary artist.
Great to know. We have some questions about life on board the vessel. Could you talk a little bit about the spaces available for an artist at sea to do their work while they're on board?
Yeah, so currently we do not have a dedicated space for our Artist at Sea program, but we are hoping in the coming years to have a container on the ship that is the artist studio that will be insulated and also have AC for dealing with the various temperature changes that might occur, and windows. We're looking to create a really wonderful space for our artists. In the time being, we have these 8 configurable lab spaces, and we imagine that the artist will likely be set up in one of these spaces and be right in the middle of the action with the scientists while creating their art, while also being mindful of the sampling processing that might be going on.
Excellent. And we would note that we would want our Bursts of Opportunity participants to be right in the middle of the science too, so they would be engaged with everything that was taking place as well. We have a question about how many artists we'll be bringing on board at a time for each research expedition. So not necessarily like a team of artists that are working together like you just mentioned, but how many artist positions or berths do we have on each expedition?
We have a minimum of 1 berth, potentially 2.
And for the bursts of opportunity, do you know about how many bursts you have for each expedition on board?
Yeah, that's yes, also a minimum of 1 berth and potentially 2, if we feel that we have more than one candidate that we think would be a good fit.
Awesome. So potentially between the two programs, a maximum of 4, a minimum of 2. So 1 or 2 of each of those, just to clarify. Um, Talking a little bit more about life on board the ship, our chefs work really hard, and we have some questions about food allergies or kosher meals. I know this isn't really your area of expertise, but you have spent time on board the vessel. So I was hoping you could tell us a little bit about what the chefs cook for our participants.
We have an amazing team of chefs who are able to accommodate any dietary restriction. So if you're gluten-free, if you're vegan, if you're dairy-free, if you're a pescatarian, any diet you have, our chefs are able to accommodate it. And I think that's something that's really special about the vessel.
Awesome. They work very hard, and all the food is delicious no matter what your dietary restrictions are. So thank you for that, Hannah. We have another question from a younger college graduate that's just coming out of art school and is wondering, even though they're passionate about marine science, are they eligible to apply where they may not be an established artist with a breadth of work, but they're looking to get themselves established and get started out? Are we considering artists such as this person?
I'd say you are more than welcome to submit a proposal, and if we feel like you'd be a good fit for the expedition, we will put you on the expedition. That said, again, just keeping in mind that we do prioritize artists from the region.
Excellent. Thank you, Hannah. I would just like to remind our participants to add any questions that they have, and we've got a few more minutes left. I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about the technology on board Falkor and how that has been used to create some of the art. I know ROV Sebastian has some wonderful panels on it that were created by artists. They weren't necessarily using Sebastian to create those panels, but there is some lovely art on some of the technology, and there's art all around Falkor too. So I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about the art on ROV Sebastian.
Yeah, so sometimes artists at sea will be asked to paint a panel that that then gets attached to ROV Sebastian. A lot of those panels, eventually, the one thing to keep in mind with that art is after a certain amount of dives, it does sort of fade away with time. So I think we are actually currently looking at adding some new panels to ROV Sebastian. But beyond that, we've had artists actually use ROV Sebastian to make art and to paint with the arms of the sub, which is really fun. And then I think there's been a few artists who are specifically tech focused and have felt inspired by the technology and have created really interesting digital mobile pieces that use computer electronics.
Great. Yeah, some really innovative art taking place on board as well. Are there any age limitations to participating as a Berth of Opportunity participant or an artist at sea?
Yeah, I believe you have to be over the age of 18 to go to sea.
Do we have a maximum age?
No.
Excellent. Going back to the Burst of Opportunity for a moment, are you able to participate if you don't have science experience? You gave a lot of examples of um, park rangers or marine managers, but do you need that science experience to participate in the Birth of Opportunity?
Yeah, definitely not. If we feel you will benefit from learning about the science, then you do not need that scientific background. And I think oftentimes it's even more valuable to bring people on without a scientific background to give their perspective to the scientists on their work and for that exchange of ideas to occur.
For sure. Great. We have a question about what type of videographer is available for the artist. This person in particular is a choreographer, but there might be other artists that need videography services. Are we able to offer that, or should they bring their own videographer along with them?
That's a good question. So we do have what we call a multimedia correspondent on board the ship. They are part of our communications team. The multimedia correspondent, one of their tasks is to create a video on the artist for each expedition, should there be enough time, if the expedition is long enough, and it usually is. So there's almost always a piece produced on the artist at sea. In terms of using our multimedia correspondent exclusively for videography purposes for your art. They are working pretty busy schedules producing videos on the expedition and on the science. So we would not be able to lend them to you exclusively for your project. If you need a videographer and it's just a team of 1 or 2, then writing that into your proposal for consideration, that is sort of the best way to, if you can provide a strong argument, then we will consider allowing you a videographer.
Excellent. Thank you, Hannah. We're just about out of time and also out of questions. So it's a perfect time to remind our potential artists at sea and Berths of Opportunity participants that are listening in how they can apply and where they should email to express their interest in participating. And then we will wrap up.
Yeah, so sorry about that. I would say again, if you have a proposal and you are interested in participating in an expedition or in the Berths of Opportunity Artists-at-Sea program, you can either sign up for our mailing list to learn more about opportunities, and then you can also submit proposals to proposals@schmidtocean.org. And just please in that header say if it's for Artists at Sea, Berths of Opportunity, and we will move on from there.
Great. So we look forward to all of your emails and submissions at proposals@schmidtocean.org. Well, thank you so much, Hannah, for taking time to answer everyone's questions. I can't wait to see all of the exciting art and variety of expertise that come on board as part of the Artists at Sea and Berths of Opportunity program. And in 10 minutes, we will be hosting our last session of the symposium, and Hannah will be answering your questions on the Ship to Shore program. So check the symposium website for the link if you're interested in learning how to join a Ship to Shore. And Hannah, before we close, I will let you have the last words on the Artists at Sea and Berths of Opportunity participation.
Yeah, just thank you all for joining and for your wonderful questions. I look forward to reading your proposals.